Have you ever wondered how your favorite app somehow remembers your name or your high score in a game? Well, it's not magic. It's actually one of the most fundamental ideas in all of programming, variables. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how this one simple concept is the secret to building smart, dynamic, and really efficient code.
Okay, let's just start with a really simple question to get our heads in the game. When an app says, "Hey, welcome back," and uses your name, how does it actually know who you are? The answer to that little mystery is exactly what we're here to talk about.
So what in the world is a variable? You know, the best way to get it isn't with some complicated technical definition. It's with a really simple and powerful analogy. Just think of it as a labeled box.
At its heart, a variable is just a name that you make up to hold on to a piece of information. That's it. The easiest way to picture it is like this. You've got a box. You slap a label on it, something like username or score, and then you put something inside it to use later.
So what kind of stuff can you actually put inside these boxes? Well, pretty much anything. You can store numbers, you can store pieces of text, which, by the way, programmers usually call strings, or you can even store the results of calculations. This flexibility is exactly what makes them the backbone of pretty much every program you've ever used.
Okay, so we've got our labeled boxes. That makes sense. Now, let's peek under the hood a little bit and see what's actually happening when you use one in your code. How does Python handle all of this?
The life of a variable really just has three main stages. First, we have assignment. When we type x equals 1, we're basically telling Python, hey, create a box for me, label it x, and put the number 1 inside. Simple. Next up is retrieval. Using a command like printx is our way of asking Python to go find that box, peek inside, and tell us what it sees. And finally, there's the update. This is where we can go back to that same box, take out the old value, and stick a brand new one in its place.
And this is where we see how these boxes work together. When Python gets to the line y equals x plus 3, it can't solve it all at once. First, it has to go find the box labeled x in its memory and see what's inside, in this case, the number 2. Then, and only then, can it do the math. Okay, 2 plus 3 equals 5. Finally, it grabs a new, empty box, labels it y, and stores that result, 5, inside.
All right, this is all pretty interesting, but what's the real payoff here? Why is this simple idea of labeled boxes so incredibly important? Well, this is where we get to see how variables totally transform our code from being rigid and static to flexible and smart. Just look at the difference here. On the left, we've got the hard way. The name Maria is typed out manually, everywhere. If we wanted to change that name, oh man, we'd have to go find and replace every single time it appears. What a nightmare. But on the right, that's the smart way. We store Maria in a variable called name, just one time, right at the top. After that, we just use the label.
And believe me, this isn't just a minor inconvenience. Imagine a huge program with thousands of lines of code. If you have to manually hunt down every single time a value appears just to change it, you are absolutely going to make mistakes. It's just a recipe for chaos. So here it is, the big takeaway. Variables give you a single source of truth. You define a value in one spot, and if you ever need to change it, you just change it in that one single place, and it updates everywhere. That's control, that's efficiency, and honestly, that's smart coding. This is already incredibly powerful, but why would we stop at just one variable? Let's see what happens when we start combining them to make our code truly, truly dynamic. Think back to our story example. It wasn't just the name Maria that was repeated over and over. The programming language, Python, also showed up multiple times. This is a classic sign for any programmer. If you find yourself writing the same piece of information again and again, it's probably time to put it in a variable.
So let's do exactly that. We can update our name variable to a new name, Bara. And then we'll create a second variable, we'll call it language, and we'll set it to JavaScript. And just like that, we've defined the two key pieces of our story.
And bam, just look at the result. We changed 2 little lines of code way up at the top, and the entire story instantly rewrote itself. No searching, no replacing, no headaches, just clean, dynamic control. This is the power of variables in action. It's awesome.
So we've covered a ton of ground here. Let's just take a second and do a quick recap of the fundamental rules. The rules of the game you need to remember when you're working with variables.
Let's boil it all down. First, remember that equal sign. That's your assignment tool. It's how you put a value in a box. Next, Python keeps all these boxes in its memory so it can grab them super fast. The whole philosophy here is to define it once, but then reuse it as many times as you want.
But don't forget, you can always go back and update what's in the box later on. And this last one's super important. Python reads your code from top to bottom, so the order in which you do things really matters.
And that's really the essence of it. This whole idea of storing information in one central place so you can reuse and update it easily, well, that's a powerful problem-solving tool that goes way beyond just writing code. So I'll leave you with this final thought. What's something in your work, or even your life, that you have to keep updating in a bunch of different places? And how could you maybe make it a little more dynamic? Thanks for tuning in.